Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is a video on the Razer Gigantus V2, an enormous mouse mat. And just for some hilarity, I'm going to be unboxing and talking about this mouse mat with the Razer DeathAdder V2 Mini, a tiny, tiny mouse on a massive, massive mouse mat. This is actually a request of Razer. They wanted me to have a go with this mouse mat and do a video and other things with it, and thought it might be amusing to send a tiny mouse to go alongside it. Now, interestingly, these things basically cost about the same amount of money. The mouse mat is nearly £50 or $50, and the mouse is also about the same, which in itself is pretty nuts. And for reference, this desk that you're seeing it unrolled on is a large and long IKEA desk that I bought on purpose to be as long as possible because I wanted to be able to fit two screens and my computer on it, so it's pretty massive. And if you've seen my previous videos, you'll have seen me do a unboxing and review of a 49-inch Samsung screen which managed to fit on here alongside my gaming rig, so that just goes to show you how big that thing is. So that gives you a rough idea of just how big the Gigantus is. It's also built with a really green underside that has a friction-inducing texture that will stop it slipping and sliding around on your desk. Now, at this size, it takes up so much room that it's not going to move around much anyway because I'm putting other stuff on top of it. But obviously, one of the things I'm going to be testing is the DeathAdder V2 Mini as well. And yes, I have this mouse mat up the wrong way around at the moment, but I thought it might have that nice green Razer hue to it while I was unboxing the mouse, and a nice, interesting Razer-themed backdrop for you to enjoy while I get this tiny, tiny mouse out of its box and then talk to you about what it's been like to use and the highlights of it. Now, as I said, this mouse is around £49 or $49, so it's pretty affordable and yet delivers some pretty good experiences. It's a lightweight mouse. It's about 62 grams, and it is, as you'd imagine from the name, very, very small. It is minuscule, in fact, and I'll show you later on compared to the size of my hand. Now, generally speaking, I don't like small mice. I've got quite big hands, and as you've probably seen on videos, quite clumsy buffoon as well, so I like something large with thumb rests and finger rests. But this thing has actually worked quite well, and one of the reasons it has worked well, as you just saw coming out of the box there, is these finger grips that they've included in the box that you can attach to the mouse to give you a better grip on it. And I'll show you the installation of those later on, but they're basically textured rubberized grips that you can install yourself, but you don't have to, so you have the choice of doing that, which is quite nice. The mouse itself comes with 6 programmable buttons and a DPI level that goes up to 8500, so that's pretty low versus the other insane Razer mice that I've tested in the past, but it's still switchable in a number of different ways within the Razer Synapse software, and I'll show you that software at the end and what you can do with this mouse in there. Also, it has 100% PTFE feet, slick white feet that you can see underneath. The switches are guaranteed up to 70 million clicks. Has a 300 IPS max speed, 35 Gs of acceleration, and an overall pretty subtle design. It does feel cheap in the hand, and the clicks are a little bit hollow, but I think that's to be expected because they've obviously shed some weight, kept this thing as light as possible, so it's basically tiny, light, and agile. The cable is also really flexible and bendable, but I will note it doesn't feel the same as the Endgame Gear XM1 that I looked at before, which was incredibly flexible and as a cable. It felt like a empty shoelace is how I described it previously because it was so floppy and lightweight. That mouse is a similar weight to this as well. Probably a nicer looking device with a smoother sort of design to it, but this DeathAdder Mini has that sort of Razer look and feel to it, quite angry angles. Obviously the classic Razer logo at the back, and a nice sort of ergonomic shape to it, although it's so small. The ergonomics obviously going to vary depending on your hand and what you like about it. It doesn't have left and right click on the mouse wheel. As I said, there's only 6 mouse buttons, so you can see you've got 2 on the left, then the mouse wheel counts as 1 and the standard 2, but these can all be programmed within the Razer Synapse software, and as I'll show you a bit later, you can also take advantage of Hypershift to then add extra button clicks to transform it a bit further if you so wish. It also has onboard memory profiles, so you can save all your macros and button programs and then profiles and everything into that mouse and take it with you. So there's plenty of little highlights for a pretty titchy little mouse that comes with Razer's optical switches and the fastest response at 0.2 milliseconds, faster than other mice out there, according to Razer. And I have found it actually to be very responsive and very interesting for gaming purposes. It's been pretty delightful. I really thought I was going to hate it, I'll be honest, because it was so small, but I've actually had a really good experience with it and had some good gaming sessions as well recently. Just enjoying it in general. Like I said, it does feel cheap, but it is a cheap mouse, and yet it still looks pretty decent, and it looks absolutely tiny on this enormous mouse mat. And Gigantus, while we're talking about that, is also an interesting surface. I have found that I've managed to spill beer on it nearly almost immediately, which is another example of me being clumsy as anything, and it soaked it up quite nicely, but it cleaned off nicely as well. It also picks up dirt and dust and hair pretty quickly, frustratingly, but it also, again, is really easy to clean. You can just get it wet, slightly damp, and wipe it down. No problems there. Nice and thick and padded as well. That's given a nice bit of comfortable support, and that underside texture, the green texture underneath, means it doesn't move around on the desk, even with stuff on top of it anyway. It also just gives you that nice bit of padding to lean on when you're gaming, or to just rest your hand on working, and it's been a pretty comfortable experience and a nice backdrop for this video with a bit of a grain Razer hue to it. Now, if you want to see a video of this mouse without me waffling over the top, I'm going to do a separate video which is exactly the same as this, but without any of my talking. So if you want to hear the clicks, get an idea of what that's like, just check out the description for a link to that. And I'll also include the link to the official pages and where you can buy both these products, so you can get an idea of what the price is like in your area and look to purchase if you're so interested. But here you can see the little grips that I was talking about. These are basically like 3M sticker textured grips. Now, I will note that these are a fiddle to install if you're as clumsy as me, but a bigger problem I found almost immediately, and I'm looking at the mouse in my hand now while I'm talking to you, and it has picked up some filth within a very short space of time between these grips, and obviously that's going to be a bit of a difficult thing to clean off, trying to get in between there. So I wouldn't recommend munching food while playing with this mouse, or getting dirty hands somehow and then messing about with it, because it will get stuck in between those. But obviously you don't need to install these if you don't want them, and you don't necessarily need to either. I think it kind of makes it look even meaner when you see them installed in a second. It makes it even more like snake-like and very scaly, but it also gives it a nice bit of textured grip on both sides and on the top, because you get ones to install near the thumb buttons as well, which means you get a better grip on it. Now obviously this is quite a small mouse, but it's actually designed for multiple different grip types, so you can still get that comfort. However, I will say that if you're going for like a palm grip where your entire hand's covering the mouse, you'll find you're hanging over the edges a little bit, unless you've got very small hands. But you can see the grips on there as they're installed. Hopefully yours will go on a bit neater than mine have. And it actually reduces the hollow sounding click to it. When without them installed, it sounds very hollow when you're clicking it. Only a minor point really when getting it out of the box. When you're in the middle of the game, you're not going to notice that. And it doesn't like feel like problematic. It's just, I think, because it's made to be hollow and lightweight. But here you can see just how tiny the mouse is compared to my hand and the size of my hand. I've got quite large hands, to be fair, but I feel like the mouse gets lost in it. But I'm still, if you're doing for a sort of claw grip, fingertips, getting it at the angle, then you'll find it's not a problem. But if you like to have your hand sort of covering the mouse, then you will find an issue with it and just how small it is, and it sits in the palm of my hand. Still loads of room left there. Still, as I said, I managed to get on with it pretty well during gaming sessions. Not had any issues in terms of size or comfort. It's been good fun to play with. I was very surprised. I really thought I wasn't going to like it. I generally don't like smaller mice. I like a nice big mouse with plenty of room for my pinky finger and such, but actually the height off the desk is pretty good, which makes up for the small size of its shape in other ways. Now, RGB lighting is pretty minimal on this. Obviously you're only going to get that Razer logo lit up. There isn't any of the other usual RGB that you'd see on it. There's no lighting around the mouse wheel, no lighting at the front, no underlighting, anything like that. So this mouse is fairly understated in all areas, in size, in weight, in DPI levels and in RGB, but it still delivers a pretty nifty little job. Now in the Razer Synapse software, you can obviously change a few things in here. As I said, it has 6 programmable buttons as standard. You can change all of them apart from left click, and you can customize them as you want to. And if you click on that button down there for standard, you can go into Hypershift mode, and that allows you to then customize all the other buttons to whatever you want them to be. And essentially what you have is a Hypershift mode is where you're basically pressing and holding one of the buttons on the mice and then switching into a different mode, like a secondary profile, where you can then press a different button at the same time and get a completely different action. So in theory, you're dropping one of the programs for that button. So in this instance, I'm going to show you it with mouse button 4 and switching that to be Hypershift, but then every other button can become something else. So you're taking a 6-button mouse and making it into 11 buttons and be able to customize them differently. And you can see you can do a variety of different things in here. You can program macros, you could have a sensitivity clutch like a sniper button similar to Corsair's mice, so if you press and hold it, it drops into a lower DPI setting for really accurate shooting. You could get it to just do media playback, launch programs, do window shortcuts, text functions, whatever you fancy. Even disable buttons you don't want to use. If you don't like thumb buttons for some reason, you could disable those. So here I've got the Hypershift button set up as mouse button 4, which is the back thumb button. Now you can press and hold that, and then I'm going to basically set it up so it launches Chrome, just an example of that. So you go into launch program, click on there, click to browse through your program files and find the Chrome exe file, save that, and now in a press and hold the Hypershift button, then click mouse button forward as in the front one, mouse button 5, that opens Chrome really quickly and easily. Do that. Obviously you could program in a website as well, so maybe you could have a click on there and it just opens your favorite website. You go straight to Reddit or straight to YouTube or whatever you have you. So you could program this tiny little mouse to do whatever you want basically. And I like to keep the buttons pretty standard because it's not an excess of buttons here. But here you can also see you can switch between 5 stages of DPI. That's with the button on top, and you can customize those right up to 8500 from 200 being the minimum, and all the stages in between. And obviously you can reduce the number of stages. If you don't want 5, you only have a couple of levels that you prefer, then you can do that. You can also change the lighting in here. As I said, there's only the Razer logo that you can customize, but you can go into Chroma and Advanced Effects and go into Chroma Studio and set that up and customize that. And if you have other Razer gear or compatible devices, you can get that to sync up too. I recently did a video on the Vivify HDMI RGB cable that also works with that. And then in Synapse you can also program and set it up to work with a Gigantus V2 or any other Razer Surface, calibrate that and get everything perfected. Hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to check out the description for everything you need to know, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting or hilarious. Be sure to subscribe and check out these other videos, as well as taking a look in the description for links and other information you might find useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see extra about this, and have a great life.